Hey folks, how's it going? So, in our next project, we are going to take a look at logo design. Specifically, we're going to be taking a look at recreating a current logo. And you will be assigned one, and it'll be a complete random assigned logo. And if you really don't like it, you can ask me for another one, and I'll randomly assign you another logo. I've got a random list, and I put it through a randomizer on random.org, and it just tells me what your logo is going to be. That's all. But anyway, so I wanted to show you a few techniques that we're going to use within this project, and kind of try to give you some help as far as like some tips and tricks as well. So logo design 101, that was what our lecture was. So here we are. We have type studies, right? That is something that we have to do when we're working with logos. With every mark, with the exception of the symbol mark, which really is going to be the hardest logo for you to make, because that's the one that kind of has to build over time to really kind of get there. It's not that you couldn't make a symbol mark, but it's probably the most difficult one. So most of you out there will probably be creating things like letter marks or word marks or combination marks or emblems, most likely. There may be a couple people that do a symbol, but for the most part, I bet we're all going to use text in one way, shape, or form. So to go ahead and do this, I'm going to open up my layer palette quick. And I'll just toss it down here with my stroke. Let's make a new layer. Turn off this other layer. We need to first start with some text. We need to start with a logo name. So let me think here for a second. How about I'm going to recreate the logo for fast food chain Arby's. And what I should do before I even get to that point is I should jump to the internet really quick, okay? And before we even get into the type study at all, what I should do is I should go ahead and look up Arby's, okay? And take a look at Arby's logo right now. So right now, Arby's has this logo. It's a capital letter A, lowercase RBY, a apostrophe and S. It's got this hat-shaped kind of thing behind it. Also kind of looks like an oven mitt. If you recall, Arby's a few years ago did commercials, and they had a little oven mitt mascot. So if I go ahead and I look at Arby's logo history, I can probably find some information on this and find out a little info without really, looking all too far, or too hard. So looks like Arby's came out in 1964, and this was its logo. And so then they went ahead, and it's definitely a cowboy hat, right? And then they went ahead and they created this, looks like in about 1975, and it was changed from Arby's roast beef sandwich to plain old Arby's, right? And then 2012, they went ahead and created this god-awful looking thing. And wow, look at the difference between that and that. That is really bad. I'm not gonna lie. Just from my point of view, anyway, it's bad. It's not a successful mark. They went way too heavy-handed on that, like kind of like really faux 3D, and I don't know, not a fan. And then guess what? Hey, look what it did in 2013. So this was 2012. In 2013, it went and it kind of like went back to where it sort of started. So that's kind of cool to see, because if we take a look at, I'm going to just go to the next one, the Logopedia. It's going to give me some more information, right? There we are. And looks like they have like a knockout kind of 2D one as well. And so it's interesting to see how, looks like I need to update my Flash player. Let's turn that off. It's interesting to just kind of sort of see how, this thing has evolved over the years. So, all right, so I've got a little info now. And now that's a little bit of DNA that I can kind of go off of. So I know for a fact that Arby's does not use all capitals. And I also know for a fact that Arby's goes ahead and it has an apostrophe. So those are a couple things that I've just learned from just a small little snippet of history. When you are assigned your logo, what I recommend you doing simply is this. You want to read up on it. Again, you could find histories of all sorts of logos out there. If I put in Pepsi's logo history, right, we're going to see where it started and where it is today. So in 1898, Pepsi kind of went ahead and did this. And then, 7 years later, they created something that was a little bit easier to read. And then just a year after that, they added the thicker lines, and it's still kind of like a informal script. They have drink Pepsi in there, and then it lasted 34 years before they came to this kind of more refined informal script. And then 10 years after that, they took that cool looking, because that's a cool looking logo, they took that cool looking logo and they put it on a bottle cap. And then in 1962 they said, you know what, we're going to get rid of that cool looking script and we're going to kind of do what they did in the 60s, and they went ahead and they put everything in sans serif because it made it look cool and fresh again, right? But they kept that bottle cap. And then in 1973, they went ahead and they took that sans serif and they kept part of it, right? And then they kind of created almost like a futuristic kind of looking thing. And then we started with this kind of iconic kind of red, white, and blue thing that we saw in Pepsi. Well, guess what? That was just the bottle cap, guys. And then over time, we got here and here and here. So, again, I recommend look into it, research it, and essentially know where it's been, so you can know where you're going to take it. So anyway, back to Arby's. So what I need to do is this. I need to think about text in this logo, because this is definitely going to be an important part of my logo for sure. So I need to do what we call a type study. And what a type study is it's essentially a way for you to kind of figure out what text may work best for a given job. And there's all sorts of ways to do it for sure. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to have a favorite font and just always fall onto that favorite font. I mean, hey, I got a favorite font. I got a favorite handful of fonts, probably about 10 or 12. And I do use them effectively, and I use them a lot. But I don't use them for absolutely everything, because if I did, then my entire body of work, my entire portfolio would always look the same. But they're my favorite fonts for a reason, simply because I know that I can go ahead and I can use them, and I can use them effectively, and I can use them quick as well. So I could, get to where I need to go on them. How did I find out what my favorite fonts are? Through 20 years of type studies. That's how. So this is how it starts. We're going to go ahead and we are going to put the text out there that we need to see, right? And just so we're sure, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type it out, and I'm going to go to type, and I'm going to go to say change case. I'm going to say sentence case. That means the first letter is going to be capital and everything's going to be lowercase. Now you're like, wait a minute, that's all uppercase. That's not true. Come on, Nick, you're lying to us. But the reality is that this font, the specific font known as Phosphate Inline, this is simply an uppercase font. And this is a thing, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to copy this. And to do that, I selected it. I held down the Option key all on a PC. I clicked and I dragged straight down. And I like to center my fonts. It looks like I did that already. I already aligned to center. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to type out Phosphate. Okay. And Inline. And I'm going to make that one way smaller, right? I'm actually going to make them both pretty small, but it's going to be a lot smaller compared to the other one. And yeah, I'll just leave my leading pretty much default. And I want to probably get about 8 of these on a page, maybe 10. So I'm going to go ahead and just make it a little bit smaller, right? And then this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to select my Arby's in phosphate inline. And I'm going to hold down my option key and I'm going to drag straight down. Okay? And what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a duplication of that. And I'm going to do a command. That's my favorite command in Illustrator. Object, transform, and transform again, or Command D. I literally use that command every single day that I use the software. And then I'm going to grab all these things and I'm going to drag this over here. And I want some distance, okay? I could totally get 12 in here if I wanted to, but I'm not going to get greedy like that. I want 9 so I can get some distance in between these things. And you're going to see why once we start working with different fonts, because different fonts are going to do some different things. Okay, so now I got 9 Arby's phosphate inline, right? Cool. So what I want to do is this. I want to simply go into my type palette, right, in my character palette, and I want to click on the font name here, and I'm going to scroll on up to the A's, and I'm going to just start on one. So I'll start over here on Abadi, and I'm going to click on this group of text here, and click on that, and there I go. That is Arby's now, not in phosphate inline any longer, but in Abadi condensed extra bold regular, right? And I don't really think I like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight right here on my character palette, and I'm going to use my up and down arrows. So I'm going to go ahead and hit down. And now that's Abadi MT condensed light. I still don't like that. So what I'm going to do, and that's Alcatraz, American Typewriter, and Almano, and I could sit here for a really long time and I could read font names off to you. So instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of do this, and I'll chat as I'm doing it. That one's kind of cool. Arby's, that's Arial Black. So check this out. See where it says phosphate inline? I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to call it Arial Black. And I'll explain why I'm doing the font names in a minute, okay? So now check this out. I'm going to grab Arby's phosphate inline here, and I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to click right here. And, ooh, that's bad. Ooh, that's real bad. Why is it doing that? Well, it's because I was trying to change the font to Arial Black, but when you use the eyedropper tool, it changes all the properties of the font name, and the size. So that's not going to work out. So that's okay. So then I'll just scroll back up here. Just wasn't thinking, I guess. There we are. Changed to Arial Black here, and now start on my way down. Yeah, Arial Rounded. That's kind of cool. Also, that kind of looks like the thing that looked awful. So maybe that's not kind of cool. Avenir next. Avenir next condensed. Now, if you find something that you kind of dig, like I'm a fan of Avenir, right? And I won't lie, it's up there in a lot of my fonts. And you might find with being in class with me that I do like a lot of sans serif fonts. That doesn't mean you gotta like a sans serif fonts, but I do. And I like Avenir. And before I even looked at the name, I just looked at what the font looked like, and I kind of dug it. So I'm going to change the style here to medium, to black, to heavy, back to black, back to heavy. I'm digging Arby's in Avenir heavy. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to write that there, Avenir heavy. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to fill the page. Now, do I always work with 9? No. Like I said, I could do 8, I could do 10. I've done font studies where I've done 20, I've done 30, right? The thing about a font study is simply this. It's going to open up your concept of what fonts are out there, because we all download fonts, every single one of us. And sometimes we use them immediately, and sometimes we just download fonts. Like, that's an interesting looking one. It kind of looks like that old Arby's logo. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead, Bernard MT condensed, regular. It's only in regular. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and put that on here. But anyway, though, yeah, like we all download fonts, and we don't use them right away. And sometimes I'm sure we've all has the font on our system that we've never touched. So I'm gonna jump back up here, jump in the B's, Baskerville, and just kind of go through these things. And so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna find a bunch of possible looks for that text for Arby's. Well, that's a good one. Chalkboard and chalk duster. Two things Nick doesn't like. I'm not talking about myself in the third person, really not trying to, but Charter, that's an interesting font. That's in bold. They got bold italic. They got black. I feel like Arby's is going to have to be a thick kind of font, so that's why I keep going to the blacks or the heavies and stuff like that. Though I don't like it, so I'm going to keep going. And here's the deal, right? Cooper black. That could maybe work. Let's try that. Cooper black. You won't know what these things look like. So you definitely won't know what your font's going to look like, or what your word's going to look like until you put it in a font, right? So it's important for you to do this. And you don't want to rush it. I'm kind of rushing it right now just because, we're doing a lesson and I don't want to waste an hour and a half of you watching me pick fonts. But I would go through this, and I would go through it as many times as I think I need to until I'm happy with the way that these letter forms kind of look like, kind of look right, I guess is the best word, next to one another. I would do it as many times as I had to. And again, I try not to look here at all. I don't care about the name of the font. I really focus on this one little spot right here as I'm going through here. Oops, I did not mean to jump that to the Z's because I want to still be able to see this. So I really just want to focus as I'm doing this. Just stare at this one spot and not look at the name of the font. I don't want to buy something because it's my favorite. That's kind of cool looking. I guess that gives me like a Napoleon Dynamite vibe. That's called Lunchbox Slab. I got regular and bold. I'm digging regular. Okay. So Lunchbox Slab regular. And so we move on. And so yeah, I'm going to do this as much as I need to. And I'm going to go through here and I'm going to find a bunch of fonts. That's just hard to read. And eventually I'll finish my type study. And you're really going to like the next part. That's Papyrus. I don't like that font either. Just feel like it's been overused. Arby's and Playbill. That kind of looks like the Arby's font. If I think about that, when I look at that, right? And I jump over here. I look at some of our history here. I do my Arby's logo history. Look at that right there. And look at Playbill. While not the same, there's some similarities there. I think I'm going to keep that then. Playbill. So it's not identical, but there's some similarities. And now, if you're thinking, well, Nick, why are you doing that? You said that this is a font redesign, right? And it is, right? But sometimes what we do is we look and we see where we started, and we try to kind of, change. When we make modifications to a brand, we don't do it in leaps and bounds. Sometimes we do it in a way where it's a smooth transition from one to the next one. So you got to be careful with that. So I think I might have just exhausted my fonts. No, I got stuck in the snowflakes here, I think. Every now and then when you get to a certain font in Illustrator, it doesn't allow you to highlight this and move up and down anymore. So you just got to go ahead and manually do it. Tecton Pro. No. That one, though, could maybe work. Hmm. Yeah, what are all these things? These are all little windings that I have installed on my system. And now, like, this has got some Japanese lettering here. This is just a font that came with Adobe, and it's one of those Japanese kinds of fonts that sometimes we just have with us. So you just need to be aware of that sort of stuff. That like you may not recognize the font, um, and that's okay if you don't. This is Trajan. This is on like every movie poster ever, so that doesn't speak Arby's to me. But Times does. Okay, and last one. And you don't just have to start at the top and go down. You can go back up too. You can go through this. And again, the bigger the font library you have, the longer this is going to take. But there's a reason why we're doing this way. And as I finish this one, I'm going to explain it. Minion Pro. There we go. Okay. So what I have here is I have my first font study for Arby's. Cool. All right. So great. I'm going to save this file. I'm going to say File, Save As. All right. And I'm going to call this my tag 252 type study. And I could put a number on it if I want, like 1 or something like that. I'm going to just make a new folder here. And okay. So, great. I got that now. So, what have I made? Well, what I have here is I've got a list of what Arby's looks like, right? And Arby's is a common logo, something that I'm familiar with. I know it's a roast beef shop, and so it's a word that I'm familiar with looking at here. And I'm not gonna lie, phosphate inline, something I never really use. Bernard condensed, definitely not use that. I haven't used Cooper in forever. Lunchbox Lab, I think I had this downloaded for like a specific project I did once. Playbill, haven't used in years. Times and Minion, I kind of stay away from it. On this list, Arial Black, Avenir, those are things that I probably would kind of use. I'd always pick Helvetica over Arial though, just because I'm one of those Helvetica snobs. But what I have here is I've got now something for my notes, right? And we can save this. And we save this as an AI file. We can also go ahead and do another save as, and we could just start to create a library. So I'm just going to come over here to my desktop really quick, and I'm just going to make a library called Type Studies. And I totally spelled that wrong, but that's okay. Let's go back and do that one more time with the correct spelling. Type Studies. All right. And I can go ahead and I can name this, right? Like an RP252 type study. Well, I'm just going to call it Arby's type study. Okay. And instead of a format as AI, I'm going to make it a PDF. And I'm going to save that. And just say yeah to all that sort of stuff. Now, here's why I'm doing that, right? Because over time, you could go ahead and you could create a lot of type studies for a whole lot of different projects, right? Because again, type is a really important thing. It's a language that we have to get out there. It's what we use to communicate with people. And so you essentially can create your own typographic library of sorts and your own typographic kind of like crib notes or like cliff notes. When you have to do a project, and it doesn't matter what the project is, you can just cycle through your type studies really quick before you even do another one, right? And you could start to kind of like whittle it down to like, ooh, Cooper Black, I like the way that those, O's look next to one another. That capital A and that lowercase R, they've got a good relationship. I bet you, there's a lot we can learn here. We got a capital letter, we got a decenter with the Y, we got the apostrophe, we got an S on the end. Like these are cool things to look at. And So what you can do is you can do it a couple ways. You can do it all digital and create like a PDF file and just put them in there and just build them. And over the years, have it. When I think about my type study library, when I'm doing real graphics jobs, I got a ton. I have probably, I don't know, at least 100, probably a couple hundred files, PDF files. But I take it a step further. I realize this is an online class and we don't have to do printing or anything. But what I do is I actually print them out. And I throw a 3-hole punch in them and I put them in a notebook. And because I like the feel of paper, and I just go ahead and I just flip through the different types because it tells me that this is what a word that I'm familiar in is, and then it tells me, the name of the font here. So I could never use phosphate again for the next 2-3 years, but I can find it and get a good sense of what it's going to do. When I do type studies, I'm also pretty methodical in how I do them. I try to use sentence case in the word of choice, so I can see how capitals and lowercases work together. And then I go ahead and I utilize lowercase in the font name, because if you think about body copy, you only have the capital lowercase relationship, just at the first word in the sentence, but the rest of the body copy tends to be lowercase letters. So that's why I do it that way. So then that way, again, I get a second sense of what this thing would look like, how these letters sit next to one another, how much kerning, how much tracking is necessary, all that sort of stuff. This I keep auto, right? Again, how much leading is necessary? What's this stuff kind of look like? Is this going to be a hard font to work with in the future? Is this going to be an easy font to work with in the future? And over time, and again, I've done this for a long time. I've, been in one way, shape, or form designing stuff for the past 20 years. So, and I probably started doing these type studies this way about a decade ago, maybe 12 years ago, and really kind of holding on to them more and more. And I just found that it was really useful for me, and it saved me a lot of time when I had to start new projects, because I could just flip through all the old work I used to do. And that's what we want to do. We want to always work smarter instead of working harder, because if we do that, then, if we quote somebody that's going to we're going to charge them $40 an hour, and we really think that the job is going to take 2 hours, and then you end up getting it done in an hour and a half, well, good for you. You just busted your butt, and you kind of sort of increased your hourly rate. And then you start to recognize you can do that on a regular basis, then you're worth more per hour. And that's how you understand how much you should charge people. Okay, when that starts happening a lot, if you start thinking it's going to take you 2 hours to do something, but you start getting more proficient at stuff and efficient, then essentially what you should do is that's when your rates go up. And we can get into that later in the class. And if you have questions about that sort of stuff, by all means, you can send me emails and I'll explain that a little bit further. But anyway, back here to the type study. Okay, so cool. So you know what you can do with this. You can save it as a PDF file, put it in a special place. You can go ahead and print this out, so you got to put it in a notebook or something like that. But how do we move forward with Arby's, though? That's the question. Well, we have to kind of be a little bit mean here. So what I do is I tend to do this on paper when I can, again, because I like paper. So I'd print one out, and I pull out a big old red magic marker. But so I'm going to simulate it here, right? And I'm going to just kind of be mean. And I'm going to just grab this little line right here. There we are. Make a big fat big old diagonal line. And I'm going to select this again and say transform. And let's reflect it. Preview that. Yep. I'm going to copy that. And look at that big old X right there. Select that. And I'm going to go ahead and group it together. And let's change that color to a big old bright red. All right. So I got this big old X here. I'm going to hide all my windows, or my palettes for a minute. Locked my type layer down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start saying what I don't think looks good. And I must have thought it looked kind of okay, interesting enough just to pique my interest. But now I've got another set of eyes on this. And if you can give yourself a little bit of time between when you type all this stuff out and then when you make this choice happen, you're going to find that it actually helps you out quite a bit. So, I'm going to simulate that time. I'm telling you right now that I think that this just does not work for this thing. Phosphate's a cool font, just doesn't work for this. I also don't think that Times works. It's a little too formal, and Minion is a little too formal too. I really like this Lunchbox slab, but it's not going to work for that. That's like got food truck written all over it, not franchise. Playbill is something that I'm kind of digging, but I am not digging Avenir, even though I love Avenir. It's not going to work for me, and I'm definitely not digging Ariel either, because you know what? Like, this is a Midwestern fast food joint. They sell roast beef sandwiches, and when I did that history of Arby's and I saw that logo from 2012 that looked freaking horrible, they tried to do that. They tried to put the slick font on it, and it just didn't work out. It needs character, and what we got going on here is we got Playbill, which is a nice big fat slab serif, right? That's kind of cool. We've got Bernard here, right? And that's giving us really thick parts of our letter forms here and really thin ones. They're pretty interesting. Cooper Black, that's not it. So I'm going to get rid of that one too. Oops. There we are. Okay. And I'm stuck between Arby's here and Arby's here. And I got to ask myself, what do I like about these two fonts? Well, what I really like about this one is the big old slab serifs. I do like those big fat serifs right there. I think they look good. Something else that I like is that this B's ascender here, right? This is going all the way to the top of that cap height. And when I look at this one here, it's got a really short ascender. I don't know if I can work with that. This has got more of a kind of like rounded slab here. It's still a pretty heavy serif on the bottom. But the more I look at it, the more I really want it to be Playbill. But I feel like that just is what the old one was. And again, I'm going to take a quick look again at the internet. I'm going to look at Arby's logo history, and I want to look at that first one again. That one right there. It's not Playbill. It's not. It's similar, but it's just not. But you see how it's got those big fat slabs? That feels kind of right. But at the same time, they're kind of rounded. So that feels kind of right too. So you know what? I think what I might say is I might play around with both of these fonts. And that's okay, right? This project, when you read through the project description, you're going to realize that you got to have two specific distinct kind of takes on the logo anyway. So if I'm talking to want distinct takes on it, I should have two different fonts to work with anyway. So it's okay. What would happen though if this happened? Upon further looking at it, I'm like, nope, Bernard sucks, and nope, Playbill sucks. What happens then? Well, you start over. That's all. And yeah, it sucks. And it takes time. But you know what? I'd rather start over and then make a better choice in another hour or two or a day or two from now than go ahead and go forward with something that ultimately I know I don't like, and then, kind of hate it the entire time, because there'll just be kind of this regret as I'm working throughout the job, and then it won't come out good. So you want to be aware of that sort of stuff. Although I do like both of these fonts, so I'm going to get rid of those red X's. And those are the ones I'm going to work with. And I'm kind of happy to say that I don't think I've ever really worked with Bernard. It's literally been years since I've touched Playbill. So that's kind of cool. And so guys, that is a type study. I will go ahead and save this again. This will be my Illustrator file again. I don't want to put it in the type studies folder, right? Because I want that one to be fresh. I want that one to not have any of this stuff on it. I will put in my logo files though, and I'll save there, and I'll just say okay. And there I have, I have the proof that like I kind of went forward with this, and keeping this file is important too, because again, you can fall back on it if you ever kind of wonder why you chose those fonts. Like in a few days you're working this through and you're like, why did I pick that? Why didn't I pick like that sans serif font? You open this back up and see those red X's and like realize like, yeah, there was a good reason. There's a big fat red X in it, so I must have had a good reason, and they're too clean, or like this one here is all capital and I don't like that, or this one here just seems like too like professional, and it's not that Arby's isn't professional, because it is, but it's a roast beef shop, it's a sandwich shop, so these look too much, too a little hoity-toity, and Lunchbox, cool looking font, right? But food truck font, and Cooper, cool looking font, but not for this. So anyway, that's something you want, so that way you can dial it into the ones that you really want to use. All right, so that's your first lesson in logo design, coming up with a type study. All right. As we move forward, we're going to continue to experiment with type a little bit, and we're going to also take a look at things like color. Thank you.